Well, what do you want to say about our economy? I will tell you one thing. The study came out, which should surprise no one. Can money buy happiness? Lower income Americans are less likely to report feeling positive emotions, according to our latest tracker update. And of course, because I don't have my readers on, I can't see any of that. But if you are
The numbers
wealthier,
are
yeah,
irrelevant.
yeah. Obviously, if you're not freaked out about having to go to the doctor or how you're going to pay rent or buy your kid shoes, or like, those are stressors that have lasting repercussions. It affects your health, it affects your mood, it affects your family, it affects everything. And of course, wealthy, rich people can be assholes and unhappy, and just money doesn't buy happiness, but it helps.
Look, 50 years of studies have all said the same thing. Once you get to a certain threshold of safety in your life, money doesn't buy you happiness, but you have to get to this bare bone minimum of like, hey, I'm not stressed. Stress is the number one like killer of people other than other health issues. It's
Right.
overrides everything. It causes
Right.
every part of your body to shut down and fail. So once, you know, I was a psych major in college and minor, excuse me. But you know, there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Once you get your food, shelter, cared for, you know, you can move on to higher things that are more important. You can be interested in the opera. You can,
Yeah, you can have hobbies and joy. Yeah.
yeah, but if you're stressed about rent and food and your kid not dying of COVID and you're not getting COVID at work because you're a frontline worker or something,
Yeah.
your
And you're working
happiness is
crazy
down.
hours. Yeah, of
It's not
course.
rocket fucking science.
Of course. And, as this happens, again, the trickle down effects are, as life expectancy continues to fall, major banks stop issuing 30-year mortgages. So as people are dying of COVID, excess deaths, as people are more stressed, as our life expectancy decreases, banks aren't going to take out 30-year mortgages. And I mean, I don't know if you saw the sub there, but analysts fear 5-year auto loans are becoming increasingly unrealistic given our current trajectory. I mean, what are we doing?
Excuse me. That was the beard talking.
Oh, yeah.
Although it didn't talk very loud. So thank you. Thank you, microphone with the mute button. Look, we're in a situation where if you have wealth, you're getting more and more locked into having your wealth because you have the things that determine that you are in a class above everyone else. And people going to college are in an astronomical debt, so they're not likely to reach that level. If at all, but if they do, they'll reach it in their 40s maybe or something, where it used to be you go to college, you work 5 to 10 years, you have a house that you already own. And that's not realistic for people. And with people dying so young, which is the reason these banks are afraid of 30-year mortgages, that's going to price out people who could spread a mortgage over 30 years. So now you have to be making $150,000 a year. $100,000 a year isn't even enough for people to buy a house. Is what
I mean, in almost no city in the whole country. Yeah. Yeah. So again, those repercussions. And, I saw somebody earlier, because we'll talk about the child labor laws that are being pushed back, and the deregulation on all parts of labor protections, but especially the one with child labor it's just so stark. As more people don't want to take jobs that don't pay them enough, or they're having to work several different jobs and nobody can, I mean, as all of those things are happening, and then you're not building wealth, you aren't able to buy into homes. That gives the opportunity to these enormous companies like BlackRock to swoop in and buy them all up with cash that nobody has. And so then we really are. It's like a serfdom at this point. It's back to feudal land ownership.
And the American dream is you can go to school and educate yourself out of poverty, which is ridiculous because that dream is putting more people in poverty now.
Yeah. Yeah. And, Unfortunately, I hear a lot of people say like higher education isn't even worth it anymore because you're going to be in debt for the rest of your life. And that's the truth. Unless you're wealthy, you will be in debt for the rest of your life, or you win the lottery, whether it's actually winning the lottery or you just happen to be somebody who gets one of those great jobs, which are few and far between. But the thing that's just so depressing is as the whole focus in our country becomes on making money, whether you're poor and that's an absolute necessity, or you're pathologically greedy, billionaire, the idea of a liberal education, liberal arts education that expands your mind and allows you to study previous thinkers and to read great novels and discuss with brilliant people, and that's just gone by the wayside. Nobody even talks about that. That's like a luxury that's laughed at. And I think we are losing a lot by that. We are losing a lot when we say goodbye to a real education for most people.
Absolutely. I mean, that's it's a liberal arts degree. Everything that falls under that umbrella is like the culture of society, more or less. It's like, which doesn't mean that stuff is more valuable, but it's like you're going to get the liberal side of things, the liberal arts side of things from rich people from now on, because it will be a true luxury to enter those fields, because you can't survive with a degree in, say, art history.
Yeah.
or psychology. I mean, I remember like my girlfriend she got her master's in psych, and she was a cocktail waitress when I met her in the casinos, because I dealt cards once upon a time in casinos. And she went from making $150,000 a year as a cocktail waitress to suffering to make like $30,000 a year as someone with a master's degree in psychology, which is, these are the people helping the most problematic people who can afford to get help.
Right.
So yeah, the society is fucked, Anyway, the economy, back to the economy. Is this, we're on the economy?
Is that what we're talking about?
To solve this, we're looking at the way out of this problem with our economy shitting the bed is kids.
We have a good solution. Yep. The children are our future.
If I could sing, I would break out in song right now with that song.
I believe the children. I can't.
So we have something on child. We have a video on it. Let's play that video.
All right.
Here we go.
Have you seen this viral video of a teenager working at a fast food restaurant in the US?
You work here?
Yeah.
How old are you?
13.
Oh my god. Is that even allowed?
It's not what the US is typically known for, and it's not how the American dream is portrayed in films. But child labor is making a comeback in the country, and though it never really ended, its use looks set to increase. Here's a summary of how some big companies are employing children, and what's in store for the future of child labor in the US. Let's start with McDonald's. In 2022, a federal investigation found that McDonald's scheduled 14 and 15-year-olds to work illegal hours and shifts, putting their safety, well-being, and education in jeopardy. These McDonald's locations in Greater Pittsburgh were operated by a third party. Heard of Dunkin' Donuts? Well, a report by a minor employee kickstarted a damning investigation into the chain after the minor reported that they were made to work more than 10 hours a day. The investigation found more than 1,200 child labor law violations over a year and a half at multiple Dunkin' Donuts locations in Massachusetts. In 2022, Chipotle also had thousands of alleged child labor violations, from excess hours to failing to provide break times. These are just some of hundreds of cases. Legally, people in the US can start working at age 14, but there are restrictions and bans on working hours and on minors working in more hazardous locations, like car factories and slaughterhouses. Despite restrictions, companies are taking advantage of cheap child labor. In 2023, PSSI, a meatpacking cleaning company, was caught employing over 100 children across facilities in 8 US states. Some children even suffered chemical burns on the job. Not long before, another investigation found that at least 4 suppliers of Hyundai and Kia hired undocumented and migrant children as young as 12 at their Alabama auto body plants. Since 2018, there's been an increase of nearly 70% in children being employed illegally by companies in the US. While urging for more resources to tackle the problem, Labour Secretary Marty Walsh said, "This is not a 19th century problem. This is a today problem." But many are worried that the country is going back in time, with some states introducing bills that would roll back children's rights that were won in the last century. While most bills would remove protections around working hours, the state of Iowa's bill would also remove protections against children working in dangerous and even deadly environments. Critics of these new bills say that instead of raising the minimum wage to address labor shortages in some industries, some states would rather turn back the clock on children's rights.
Yeah, so that's wildly depressing, and it's happening in legislatures all across the country now. More Perfect Union did a really good multi-part thread on all the different places that it's happening. Hard to keep track of all the child labor news in the US right now. We never thought we'd be saying that, but here we are. How did we get here and what's going on? Child labor used to be common across the US. Children worked in factories and mines for low wages, and enslaved children worked in homes and on plantations. After decades of activism, peaceful protests, just kidding. The federal government started to outlaw child labor in 1938 with the Fair Labor Standards Act. But now we've got the Iowa Senate passing a child labor law. They did it in the middle of the night yesterday at 4:52 a.m. The bill lets 14-year-olds work 6-hour night shifts, 15-year-olds work on assembly lines, and 16 and 17-year-olds could serve alcohol. That's like the least of the problems of that whole bill.
Yeah, and when they pass something in the middle of the night, they know it's wrong. That's what it means, flat out. And please follow these guys, More Perfect Union. They're pointing out all the strike actions. They go out of their way to, that's all they do. But this thread goes on forever. I'm just going to hit a few real quick. In Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders signed a bill into law that dramatically expanded the ability of companies to employ children under 16. They don't even have to verify the age of children under 16 before they take a job. So that means anybody, because you don't have to verify the age of somebody. New Jersey, they signed Bill 42222, which would allow corporations to employ teens working up to 50 hours a week.
50 hours a week. I mean, I thought we had a 40-hour work week anyway, and that's for kids, teenagers.
And I mean, kids have strong bladders, so they can lengthen the time between mandatory breaks. Great stuff there. And I think one more, Nebraskans voted to increase the minimum wage from $9 to $10.50 by the end of the year. Republican Center introduced a wage to 14 to 17 called youth minimum wage. So that's a new thing. And Democrats are what? What are they doing to stop this? Nothing.
What they're trying to pass all those federal judges.
Yeah, which
I know
that's another category, but the point is, they're not, because of Feinstein, we're not even appointing Democratic judges, and we're just going, it's just we can't do anything about it.
What's an opposition party to do?
Because they don't have the majority they need to pass to approve judges.
Right.
But anyway,
however, when Trump was in power, remember Chuck Schumer sent everybody on vacation and fast tracked all of his federal judges.
Absolutely. It was just like it's decorum, the rules, the norms. You know, Democrats with their the normal thing to do is just go along with the other side and everything. But meanwhile, when we're talking about child labor, Biden knew, their administration knew, this is coming out now. This is a breaking story, basically, this week, but more information is coming out about it, that they knew that these migrant immigrants, these kids were being exploited. And basically people in his department were like, well, don't tell us about that. We don't want to know about that.
And, you know, even though this was in the New York Times, it was one article. I mean, if this had been Trump, and this is again why, as disgusting, deplorable as Trump was, at least there was constant outrage and people were motivated to try to change things. And now there's a complacency because even progressives in Congress will talk about how Biden, restored the soul of a nation, and he's the most progressive Democratic president since FDR, and he's got an A+. And so there's silence, or there's this strange idea that I hear from lots of liberals that he means well. Like, it doesn't matter what the outcome is the same, right? The migrants in cages, the sending people back to Mexico where they are burned alive, basically in a cage on the Mexican side of the border. None of that matters because they believe that Biden's basically a decent person.
He's got a good heart.
Yeah. They're going to give the benefit of the doubt to every single exact same disgusting policy. But with Trump, they would be outraged. I mean, it's just, the mind boggles. Truly, it is outrageous.
Yeah, well, it's because the regular press, the mainstream MSNBC, CNN, has convinced people that no matter what is happening with the Democrats, if you watch those shows, it's worse on the right. And it probably is worse on the right. But what they leave out of that argument is that means there's nobody fighting for the left, which means it's on them, the mainstream press, to point out that the left also has these problems, not ignore these problems.
Right. Yeah, stop running cover for them. Like, yeah, I know. I mean, it is really true. The vote blue, no matter who, Joe means well. I don't know why anybody thinks Joe means well. That's just a lie that's been sold to the public. Why would you ever think that Joe means well? He spent 40 years in power destroying our country and destroying the lives of marginalized communities. So I just don't understand why anybody still falls for that. It's really,
it's because they literally don't know about any of it.
Yeah.
Not a lick of it, not a single drop of it do they know.
Yeah.
Because the press doesn't report on it. They've bought a caricature of him that at worst he's a sleepy old lost dizzy
with
grandpa.
Gaps. Lots of gaps.
But, he doesn't know much. He's not very powerful. He's not effective.
Right.
He's whatever, but I mean, he means well.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
It's really, the level of cognitive dissonance is just stunning. Yep. Helped Clarence Thomas get on the Supreme Court, wrote the crime bill, made sure that you can't discharge your student loans if you go bankrupt, voted for the Iraq war, like actually really galvanized the Democratic Congress to vote in favor of a war that he knew was based on lies. Yeah.
I mean, he literally was behind almost, if he wasn't behind the evil legislation
Patriot Act
that we've had in this country.
I'm just going to keep shouting it out.
Look, the Patriot Act, at the time, people were like, you weren't really behind the Patriot Act, but he thought politically it was good. So whether he was behind it or not, he wanted to be
takes credit for it.
I'm the guy who wrote the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
Back then, he's like, it's based on my legislation. So now he runs away from it. Iraq war. I mean, he's awful on everything. Like you said, student loan debt, but not just student loan debt, medical debt too. They've changed some of that. So now you can get bankruptcy. But at the time, he was very pro medical debt can't be forgiven. Why? Because he was literally I say literally a lot, but he was known as the senator from MBNA, which was a credit card company, but which back in the 80s, 90s was like the top credit card company because he's from Delaware. So he was in the bed of all the financial services industry. So all the
that was his whole job.
25% interest rates you can put on him too. The banks owned him.
Yeah.